And good morning, Thailand. Thank you very much for joining us again on another program. It's Thursday, and we have in the studio here Bill Barnett from C9 Hotel Works.
Tim, I'm going to have to start wearing my sunglasses with those shirts you're wearing.
Even I think this is pretty outrageous.
It's starting to blend in with the Thaiger there.
Yeah, I actually, this blue really inspired me to paint the wall that colour, the shirts. Anyway, a very busy show today. Even though it is a public holiday in Thailand, it is the Queen's birthday. She married the King just 2 days before his coronation back in 2019.
I did not know that.
And it's her birthday today, Queen Sudita. So happy birthday, Your Majesty, I suppose we should say. I'm sure she's watching. Now, before we get started today, it's a bit of a big day in Phuket today. I mean, I know we're talking about the island a lot at the moment, but it is the focus of a lot of attention because of this Sandbox that's starting on July the 1st. But a lot of people are being vaccinated today, including two people in the studio, Bill and also Jay, who presses the buttons.
We've got appointments today, so it's an exciting day.
So you got your short sleeve shirt on already?
Exactly. I'm going to roll up my sleeve and...
Do you get to choose an arm?
Absolutely.
And that will be the Chinese Sinovac?
That will be the Sinovac.
Okay.
Which was approved by the WHO yesterday.
As we're calling them the leftovers for the foreigners on the island.
Whatever works, Tim, whatever works.
Speaking about vaccines, we have on the line a gentleman from Bangkok. It's Peter Fishbach, who is representing an organisation called Democrats Abroad, a voluntary group. Peter, when he's not doing this, has a recruitment company, but he's trying to get the US Embassy in Thailand to help American citizens to get vaccinated. Welcome to you, Peter.
Hi.
Now, Peter, what are you trying to do? What are you asking the American Embassy to do?
Well, let me be clear. It's not the embassy that we're really asking. It's the U.S. government because the embassy doesn't really make that decision. And in fact, the embassy has been quite supportive of communicating our interests and our concerns back to the State Department in Washington. And what we're trying to do is get the U.S. government to provide vaccines and vaccinations to American citizens overseas. The reason for that is our president has basically made a promise that all Americans are eligible to be vaccinated by the US government. And in fact, the US government has a surplus of vaccines.
Peter, you wrote a letter jointly to Joe Biden as well, but there were other groups involved. What other groups were involved in writing that letter?
Well, we collaborated with Republicans overseas and with the VFW, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, which is a group of American veterans here in Thailand, and also with the American Women's Club. This is, I mean, in some ways, this is as big a news as anything that Republicans and Democrats both signed a letter.
That's amazing in itself, right?
That we're completely in sync on this topic. It's quite amazing, actually.
We noticed that the Chinese embassy in Bangkok has been able to vaccinate all its Chinese citizens staying in Thailand. So is this something that spurred on the Americans to try and get behind vaccinating the citizens here?
Well, we certainly see that as an example that makes a lot of sense. I believe the Chinese did it. They requested permission and were granted permission by the Thais to do that in conjunction with donation and sale of vaccines to Thailand. And we believe that that's a really good model that America could follow. Again, we would be pleased for America to donate vaccines, not just in Thailand, but globally. But that's actually a separate issue. And, you know, we think that what the Chinese did makes a lot of sense. Is good for the Thais. I mean, think about it. You know, there's probably somewhere between 50 to who knows 100,000 Americans here, and that would be that many fewer people that Thailand has to worry about vaccinating. So for one thing, it's win-win for Thais. Great PR for America if they want to be seen as taking care of their own and making donations and helping an ally. We don't see a downside to it. And we've made that point in letters to initially to Secretary of State Blinken. We've written letters to President Biden, and also a letter to Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman, who was just in Thailand. In fact, I think she's leaving today. She met with Prime Minister Prayut yesterday here in Thailand, and we have made the point to many people in the administration and in Congress that this is the right thing to do. So in answer to your question, we think the Chinese model, made all the sense in the world, and we've mentioned to many folks in DC that they should step up and do the same thing.
So what's the feedback so far? The letter's been out there for a while. You've said you've spoken to other people as well in the private sector and the public sector. What are the comments, or what are the actions that you're seeing, or the outcomes?
Well, for the most part, it's been pretty positive. In terms of outcomes, I mean, the one outcome would be to, it's all talk until I have a sore shoulder. I mean, this is all just all we can do is advocate for this, and it hasn't happened yet. But the response has been quite positive, both from individuals as well as from the people that we're communicating with in the U.S. We Democrats Abroad is part of Democrats Abroad Thailand is part of a global organization, and there are country committees all over the world. We're basically a state party, if you want to look at it that way, for U.S. citizens around who live overseas. And in each country, there are now groups who are starting to do the same thing that we're doing, which is surveying their members and getting a sense of people who would be interested in this, and communicating that back as well. So it isn't just Thailand that's asking for this. We've sort of spearheaded this, but and partly because of the situation that we're in, and because Thailand would be an ideal place to show that this works. As you know, I think the U.S. government has vaccinated all of its State Department personnel around the world. So we know that this is doable, and we're not asking for something that's we're not asking for a moonshot here. So that sentiment is now bubbling up from in many countries, and they're doing the same thing we're doing.
Peter, it would seem that, I'm not sure what's going to happen first, but it looks like they're really starting to accelerate the registration process in Bangkok. It may be that you'll be able to get included in the next few weeks in the Bangkok rollout of vaccines and make all your hard work unnecessary.
Well, it's a possibility. I mean, again, we don't know yet how that's all going to work out. In terms of availability and in terms of what's on offer. In one of the issues that many Americans have, or concerns that they have, is that if they want to travel back to the States and be considered vaccinated for purposes of accessing, public venues, or, whether it be restaurants, or whether it be eventually, domestic airlines, or, anything that may at some point start to require proof of vaccination, that proof is going to be vaccination with a US FDA approved vaccine. And unfortunately, that's not something that is currently on offer. So even if without really making a value judgment as to the efficacy or the pros and cons of the different products, one of the issues that many Americans have is it won't open up travel for them in America if they get vaccinated with say Sinovac or.
Well, it's been approved by the WHO. Isn't that good enough for the American FDA?
Well, it hasn't approved it yet. So, that's certainly not.
It has been approved by the WHO.
Yes, but I don't know whether I don't know what the process is for the US FDA to, I don't believe they can just accept it without their own approval process. So, until that happens, it doesn't really do us as much good from the logistics point of view as would a vaccination with one of the other types. But look, this is a fluid environment. These things are changing, and you're right. They may approve it, and it may change, and we may have an option that would work just
Maybe
fine.
trying to wrap up quickly. I think looking past the vaccine, I know there's issues with many expatriates who live abroad and wonder access to national health care systems, other things with advocacy. I know, what's the situation with your organization with advocacy for things like medical care and Medicaid and things like these?
Oh, well, we are not able to access many of those programs. In fact, that's another issue that is somewhat highlighted by this. This is yet another example of how Americans overseas are somewhat discriminated against, disenfranchised by our own government. We want to participate, and we do participate, and many of us pay into Medicare, but we cannot use those services outside the United States, despite paying for it. Voting is challenging at best, in America for foreigners, for Americans living in foreign countries. It's quite a difficult and confusing process, and we're trying to make that easier and better because we do want to participate in our political system. And there are financial difficulties, not just the taxation, but utilizing financial services in America is difficult if you live overseas. And all of this is part of our advocacy efforts. And it's why a lot of Americans participate with Democrats abroad, because we are very active in that. I know the Republicans also have an organization, Republicans Overseas, and they joined us in this letter. And some of these issues are also totally in sync with, not all of them, believe me, but there are many issues related to overseas Americans that the Republicans agree with us on, because it affects all of us.
Peter, we should note that the British and the Australian embassies have already said to their citizens living in Thailand that they won't be assisting them in any way, even though in the case of the Australian government, they gave the Thai government 30 million baht donation to help with the rollout of vaccines for Thai citizens without any caveats at all for their own Australian citizens. Just as we wrap up, I should note just a question without notice to both of you, because I found this interesting. What is the largest contingent of foreigners in Thailand? Which country?
Is this a quiz?
It's a quiz, it's a question. Which country has the most expats in Thailand? Number one and number two.
So you know the answer to that.
I know the answer, yes. Peter, any idea?
I would have to guess it would be either Chinese or Japanese would be the largest number of foreign expats.
Okay, Bill?
I would say Japanese and Americans.
Japanese number one. Number two, Filipinos.
There you go. A lot of teachers.
A lot of teachers.
Healthcare, sure, absolutely.
With that, Peter, we'd like to thank you very much for joining us. Good luck, and if you do get a result back from the President in the form of a letter saying, yep, we're sending some vaccines over, stand by for a package from Kerry Express, please contact us and tell us what's going on, and we would pass that on. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks, Bill.
And with that, we thank Peter Fishbach very much for joining us on Good Morning Thailand. Time to check Thailand's main news stories. Starting off with Thailand's COVID cases today, 3,886 new infections, of which 1,230 are from Thai prisons. There's also been 39 deaths reported in the past 24 hours. Another 700 7-Eleven stores are opening across Thailand because clearly we don't have enough of them. Courts order ISPs to block 8 users from the web and social media. Nong Shompu's uncle surrenders to police on murder charges, high-profile case. And Serbian volleyball players make racist gestures during a Thai volleyball match. And welcome back to Good Morning Thailand. Bill here in the studio from C9 Hotel Works. Bill, we're starting to get some more of the details about this way that people will be able to travel back to Thailand from July the 1st, certainly around the island of Phuket, which is sort of the hot zone for this rollout, the Sandbox. There's a lot of activity, and as we noted earlier, a lot of people actually, including foreigners, being vaccinated today. I'm not actually included in that, although hope to sort of get an appointment later.
It couldn't be the shirt, right?
It might be the shirt. If I roll up in this shirt, they'll say, this guy needs to be vaccinated. Now, just noting some interesting things with the Civil Aviation Authority of Thailand, who are now explaining some of the regulations for people coming. They've said, if you're an adult, you need to be fully vaccinated.
Right.
But if you've got the AstraZeneca vaccine, you're only required to have had one dose. That seems odd.
A lot of that, don't forget the CEAT is also for domestic travel as well. So that pertains to travel between Bangkok and Phuket as well. So they needed to address, because right now the island virtually is shut down for tourism because people from Bangkok are not traveling. It's a terrible situation right now for hotels, for any tourism business right now, because we're being strangled by not having a flow of traffic. So I think they are trying to provide framework to allow people to travel from Bangkok. So I think the one shot of AstraZeneca, really with a rollout shortly of AstraZeneca, it's aimed at the domestic market as well.
Yes, but of course people from the UK who have basically fairly much been exclusively vaccinated with AstraZeneca, they would only be required to have had one dose.
Sure.
Problem with the UK, of course, is that Thailand is in the amber zone for them, which means that it's an advisory not to travel to Thailand.
They'll be quarantined on the way back.
And quarantine on the way back. So this is a problem for the UK travellers anyway. But I noted that was just a strange thing, that you're only required to get the one dose. But anyway, we'll find out a lot more in the next few days, especially tomorrow. There's a big meeting up in Bangkok.
There's a cabinet meeting tomorrow, so we're expecting big news from that.
About some of the specific details, so we'll certainly be passing those on to you. Now, another thing is 7-Eleven stores, as Lonely Planet say in the first paragraph of their discussions about Thailand, the land of 1,000 7-Elevens. There's literally one on every corner. There's about to be more. 700 new 7-Eleven stores are being established around Thailand this year. I'm not exactly sure where they're going to put them, because there's already one literally on every corner. Even though last year people weren't out and about quite as much, the earnings for 7-Eleven were only down 6%. But they're now going to have, they've already got 12,500 7-Eleven stores around the country. And the other big one, of course, is Family Mart. Do you shop much at 7-Eleven?
No, but actually my staff in the office, they often call 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven's turned out to be delivering services as well, for lunch, for meals as well. I think 7-Eleven's pivoted quite a lot as well. It's not just providing where you have to go there, but they are delivering things as well. So I think it's an interesting model. But groups like CP, they're listed companies. They have to grow recurring income. So these companies right now are looking for a way to grow as well. And I think one argument that many people have is the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer in Thailand, and the divide is becoming broader in terms of who's expanding and who has that footprint right now. So 7-Elevens are taking a lot of the smaller mom and pop shops across the smaller shops as well. So like it or not, it is coming.
One of the best things I find in 7-Eleven, you'll probably balk at this, is they make really good coffee and really cheap. Have you tried a 7-Eleven coffee?
I have tried the 7-Eleven coffee. I'm not, I still go to my tabletop every morning. It's my favorite coffee place. But 7-Eleven, in a worst case scenario, absolutely.
At 25 baht.
25 baht. The one thing I love about Thailand is no matter where you go at a petrol station across the country, you can still get great coffee most places in Thailand. 20 years ago, not a chance.
Yeah, the coffee culture's really taken off in Thailand. If you've never been to Thailand before and you're worried, oh my goodness, I can't get a good coffee there, you can get very good coffee, and a lot of it's grown up in the north of Thailand around Chiang Mai.
Absolutely.
Very good coffee. To some of the questions from our members, and you've got some as well there, Bill. Darren Fancy, thanks Darren. He asks, newly arrived in Bangkok and finished quarantine. I've been given the all clear. Before leaving Canada, I had the first shot of AstraZeneca. Where can I travel to now? It's all as clear as mud.
Well, it seems like with the news in from the Civil Aviation Authority of Thailand, with one shot of AstraZeneca, you can fly anywhere within the country. that would seem. But the one thing we would say right now is check with the airline. If you're unsure of what you're going to have to do for the regulations, there's a lot of information out there. Check with the airline, give them a call, try to get in touch and say, what documents do I need before I go anywhere?
Yeah, whatever you do, just make copies of all your documents, make sure your passport's up to date, make sure any vaccination certificates you've got are your copies of those, because it's going to be a bit of a paperwork nightmare probably for a few years. So just be prepared. To Scott D, who says, can Bangkok continue to modernize with some of its magnificent recent skyscrapers as an example? Not sure about that, while simultaneously maintaining its historical charm and preserving its historical sites and buildings. What do you think?
I think we've seen a great job down by the river, with the revitalization of that whole area, in terms of what's going, Bangkok, River City as well, the art galleries down there, Prakannon area, these type of areas. History is coming back. I think there is value to it, and people are learning that there's a different side of Bangkok. And people, the SkyTrain changed everything in Bangkok. It pushed the tourism district. Now we're seeing a revitalization of areas like Chinatown down by the river. We're seeing also the Klong revitalizations, which is really interesting, because people are going back in the Klongs and seeing a different way to explore Bangkok. So I think it's really a great way forward.
Bangkok used to be called the Venice of the East,
Sure.
and used to have a lot of canals. They sort of filled them in a lot during the 20th century, but they're now starting to dig some of them back up again, and also establishing more. They've got electric ferries in some of the Klongs now. I used to actually go to work when I was in Bangkok last year, go to work most days on one of those canal ferries, which are a lot of fun, very cheap, and you're sort of standing on the side hanging on for grim death. But
and often the fastest way.
Very
fastest way
fast.
between 2 points.
I'm still not sure if I'd want to fall into that water though. It doesn't quite look as clear as they claim it is. But yeah, I think Bangkok is one of the cities in the world where they are doing very well to maintain a modern, vibrant city, but retaining the sort of the old charm. And you can still see a lot of that around
Sure.
Bangkok if you're a sort of a historic hunter. You've got some questions there, Bill.
Sure, we've got a question from Paul. Does anyone know if it's okay to stay in any SHA certified hotel in Phuket with a standard booking?
SH Hotel, this is the sort of the registration that's required by the hotels to allow foreigners to stay there, and the idea being that they will then say that 70% of the staff have been vaccinated, it's all safe and you'll be fine here.
So as far as we know, yes, you can stay in an SHA hotel with a standard booking. You have to stay there for 7 days, and then you can proceed to your place of residence, you can proceed to Bangkok, you can go wherever you want.
You won't be allowed to just arrive at Phuket airport and then go and stay with Bill for a week.
But the one important note is you're not quarantined to that hotel. You can move about and you can do anything else as long as you're a registered guest.
And you can even change hotels. A lot of hotels will be apparently registered by that time, so that you'll have plenty of choice.
We've got a question in from Daisy. Now, Daisy, we've had a little bit of controversy. This says, say no to the mark of the beast, Lucifer injection, the same shall drink of the wrath of God from the book of Revelations.
Daisy, thank you very much. I think we've addressed this before. And it wasn't Daisy, but somebody sent me 7 pages of copies of the book of Revelations showing me the mark of the beast. I think you can safely get vaccinated and not have to worry about it being described as a mark. I don't think it'll leave any mark at all.
Well, I guess, you'll be able to drink right now as long as, currently in Phuket we're not allowed to drink alcohol in bars or restaurants as well. So I guess we'll have to wait for that, in terms of a little while longer.
Yes.
Yes.
You or me? You got one. Okay, off you go.
We've got NVS 28. Tourists will come only after the pandemic is over. And I think that's something we talked about yesterday, Tim, is we're going to have to learn to live with this.
But at some stage, you move from being a pandemic where the virus is something that people want to contain to it becoming endemic. In other words, it's just everywhere. You can't contain it anymore, and you then just have to cope with it and manage it, like the flu, like a whole lot of other diseases. Things like polio and cholera, they became endemic, but we found ways of controlling them and vaccinating and different drugs that would be able to control them. So it looks like now it is sort of slowly becoming endemic, that something like an annual shot or a booster may be required for COVID, along with any other boosters you might get for flu or something else.
Or more in my case, I'm going to have to learn to live with Tim's shirts.
What's wrong with my shirts?
I like it actually. It's just, you are blending in well with the painting today.
Can't get vaccinated against
Exactly.
this shirt. Ambient Mopar says the program is running well. Thank you. We're slowly getting there. The topics are broad ranging. The sound could use a small amount of attention. Yes, we are doing something about the sound, and you should notice that tomorrow. Don't really have any questions, but my interest is legalized THC cannabis and home-based growing of such. Thanks for what you're doing. Meow, meow. Not sure what the meow is about. The whole cannabis thing and the attention that's been given to it by the government over the last year, I think has surprised a lot of people, with the prior to government being a very conservative government. What are your thoughts?
I think one thoughts though for Thailand, certainly from a medical cannabis standpoint, it's a logical extension of international medical drives as well in terms of where the industry can go. And I think Thailand does have a chance being very agricultural oriented in terms of taking advantage of this and creating a strong niche for medical marijuana. I think it absolutely makes sense.
And people should also understand that the drive for legalization of marijuana in Thailand has got nothing to do with the impetus from the prior government. It's basically because one of the coalition members, a vital coalition member, which is the MPs from the Bum Jai Thai party, which come from the Public Health Minister Anaton, they need those votes to remain in power, to retain their coalition. Without the Bum Jai Thai MPs voting for the coalition government, there wouldn't be a prior government. And they ran solely in the last election in 2019 on the legalization of cannabis. So this is purely a political move, and I'm not sure if we get a change of government when the Bum Jai Thai party are not required as a part of the coalition, if we're going to see any furtherance of this legalization of marijuana.
In politics aside, we also have seen great success of weed tourism per se, and Willie Nelson in Colorado and everything else. So it's something that is out there as well. But certainly there is a rise of hemp products and certainly a broader industry. It's not just about weed for THC consumption. It's a lot broader out there as well. So I think we are seeing that industry evolve. But Thailand certainly has been progressive amongst Southeast Asian countries. So I think they are a leader in that, which is quite interesting for me.
Very interesting for such a conservative government. With that, been a busy show. Thank you very much, Bill.
Thank you. Happy holiday, and
Happy holiday.
Happy holiday.
It's the Queen's birthday.
Exactly.
And I haven't been invited to the party, so I'll go home. Thank you very much to Jay for pressing the buttons. Thank you very much to you for your comments, and we'll keep on addressing those in the weeks ahead. Have a great Thursday, and thanks for joining us on Good Morning Thailand.